Let's play a game of panic or patience with Jason Timpf. Well, where else could we start but with Ja Morant, the Memphis Grizzlies? So Ja Morant over the weekend, Shams Charania drops the news that he was suspended for conduct detrimental to the team. That's because in a loss on Friday, he quit. He quit. Just straight up quit in the second half of the game, was not moving when he didn't have the ball in his hands, wasn't putting in effort on defense. After the game, something must have happened specifically with him and their Grizzlies head coach, and they decided to suspend him for a game. And so with Ja Morant, we are in a situation now, Jason, where I have throughout the year, earlier in the year, I did my top 50 rankings. I had Ja Morant outside of the top 40. A lot of people on social media, particularly the Ja stans, as insane as they are, got very, very angry with me. And I reiterated that again. What happened in that game on Friday and what his diminishing performance is, why I have him outside of the top 40. And I put out some stats on social media about his at-rim frequency by season in his NBA career as a rookie. 49% of his shot attempts were at the rim. This season, as of that night, it was 28%. Now it's down to 25%. So it's pretty much been cut in half, the frequency in which he's getting to the basket. And the problem is, Jason, he's also not improving as a shooter. This year, he has taken 32 three-pointers. He's made 5 of them. Guess how many air balls Ja Morant has of those 32 three-pointers?
I saw a couple of them the other night. So I'm going to guess a half dozen. How many?
He's got 5 air balls, man. 5 made threes. The shot does not look good at all. He looks like a player who has regressed. And so I bring that to the question here. The state of Ja Morant and the Grizzlies, Jason. Are you panicking or are you staying patient?
I have been more or less of the opinion that the Grizzlies need to move on from the Ja Morant era for a little over a year now. I think there's above and beyond there's the conversation about him and his career trajectory, which I think you laid out perfectly. A lot of similar stuff that I was going to hit on, like the jump shooting continues to get worse. I've listed his synergy shot attempts at the rim. He's decreased every single year since he made the All-NBA team, and he's literally at 4.7 attempts per game at the rim per synergy to start this season when he was 9.6 in 2022 when he made All-NBA, which is literally less than half. So he's he's getting to the rim less than half as frequently as he did, as you put in that chart, that great visual representation. Like
the raw numbers are crazy to hear, Jason. Like though the percentages I had on screen, but the raw only less than 5 times total per game blows my mind.
Yeah,
and one of the responses people had to that chart on social was like, "Well, 28% is still good." It's like, well, it's slightly above average for a point guard, but if you look at like these other great athletic guards, like Russell Westbrook was above 40% every year of his career. It never went down when he was just in his mid-20s. It stayed up. And so that's where it's like, this is concerning with Ja. The shot's not going to improve, but he's also not getting to the rim as much. He talked last year about not dunking anymore. Like, that's scary. It's really scary when you project him forward.
Exactly. And I don't think it's quite as bad as the numbers show in the sense that he's also clearly not being as aggressive to start the season to the rim. So do I think he's the same guy who got to the rim 10 times a game back in 2022? Obviously not. He's clearly declining, but it's also being exacerbated by his attitude and total level of engagement. And so when you put that in conjunction with the poor jump shooting, and then also the last part of it too is like this roster. Like if I asked you in a vacuum, like, okay, we have this guy in Ja Morant. He's got this transcendently great foundational gift. It's the thing that has had me so excited about Ja forever and why it's hard to give up on him, which is he's incredibly good at getting to the rim and he's a very good short range shot maker. Like when he pops up off the ground, kind of like the Suns game winner. When he pops up off the ground in that 5 to 8 foot range and he shoots that little push shot, he hits it at an extremely high rate. As a matter of fact, I think he's 12 for 17 on floaters this season. He's great at that shot and he's great at getting to the rim, theoretically, right? Obviously not in practice to start this year. I also think he's a great passer. I think he's a much better passer than people give him credit for. So if you asked me what kind of roster he should be on, I would tell you he needs to be on a team that can space the floor. And this Memphis Grizzlies team has been the worst jump shooting team in the entire NBA to start the season. Even if you take out Ja Morant pull-up jump shots and you focus more on catch and shoots, they're still one of the worst teams in the league at converting catch and shoot jump shots. And so it's kind of, in addition to any in a vacuum concerns you have about Ja Morant, it's also a roster that is not suited for his strengths. Teams are going to pack the paint against Ja, just like the Lakers did. That is going to be the game plan, and that then accentuates his biggest weakness, which is he has never improved as a jump shooter. And then the last thing I'll say about it is this: if you're the Grizzlies, has this guy at any point shown any attempt to accept personal responsibility for what's going on, or any self-awareness to what's going on around him? And that's the hard part, when there's absolutely no positive trajectory in him as a basketball player, in fact, a negative trajectory. And there's also a lack of self-awareness and accepting personal responsibility. It's just like, to me, the giant red flag of all red flags to say that this is not the right situation for him to be in. And it gets confusing because, like, I start to think, I go like, okay, well, what kind of team makes sense for Ja? And I think about teams, like, it'd be fun if like Boston made a move for a guy like Ja, because they can surround him with shooting. But it's like, why would Boston want him? Why would Boston want him with everything that's gone on with him and his personality over the last couple of years? And so it's just a sad story because, like, again, I really do think he had a superstar foundational trait: the ability to get to the rim basically against anybody, and the ability to make short range shots and play make out of those situations. And it's just been an incredible underachievement to this point.
It's a shame because that series he had against the Warriors, where he was just absolutely unstoppable, those highs were unbelievable. He was one of the funnest players in the entire NBA to watch, and he was also dominant. And ever since then, we just have not seen that version of Ja. And to your point about the personality aspect, that's what made the quotes after the game just so alarming. I mean, like, he's asked about what happened in the second half, like, ask the coaching staff. Ask the coaching staff. You're the guy who quit on the freaking team. I mean, you're the leader. You're supposed to be the leader of the team. That's not how a leader has responded. And it's not the first time he's acted that way. Ultimately, if the play on the court were still at the level that it was in his prime, it'd be forgivable. You just say, well, that's just part of Ja, but it's not. And so that's where you look at the Grizzlies. Like, I'm slamming the panic button here with Memphis. I'm panicked because, like, this window very well could be shut. I think it is shut. They may not realize it yet, but I do think it is shut with the Ja Morant hopes of, leading the Grizzlies to a championship. Not going to happen, especially given his decline. Not happening when your power forward, Jaren Jackson, rebounds like a little guard. Like, there's just some fundamental issues with this team, Jason, that I think they're ultimately better off looking in the mirror and saying, okay, can we find a team that is going to overwhelm us for Jaren Jackson? That's going to make an acceptable offer for Ja Morant. I'd be open to those things if I'm Grizzlies general manager Zach Kleiman. Is that going to happen? I don't know, because, for Jaren Jackson, I'm sure, like, if he were available, there'd be a vast market for him. Maybe you don't want to trade him, but it'd be an overwhelming offer, I would think, for him. For Ja, I don't know, man. Like, there's not a lot of teams that need point guards. There's also not a lot of teams that need a smaller guard on a max contract with a declining game and a bad off-court attitude. I just don't see a wide market unless it's like some middling team that wants to roll the dice, like the Kings, the Pelicans. Like, he just feels like a King or a Pelican to me. I just can't think. Like, people have thrown out, well, what about Minnesota? Why would Minnesota trade for Ja? I just see friction between him and Ant personally. I don't think that fit would work. I want the ball in Ant's hands more in the years to come, not less, as he grows as a playmaker. Teams in the Eastern Conference, you mentioned, like, in theory, the Celtics surrounding him with shooting. I agree, that makes some sense, but they wouldn't want him for personality reasons. Like, who else in the East? Like, not a lot of teams need a point guard. I don't think the Bucks would make any sense. It would not work with Giannis Antetokounmpo, and plus Ryan Rollins looks excellent. You want to move forward with him. the Heat, well, he didn't like playing last year in the Taylor Jenkins offense so with Noah LaRoche and all the qualities they installed there with not a lot of pick and roll, not a lot of screening, a lot of off-ball motion. He hated that. That's one of the reasons why Taylor Jenkins got let go. So you're telling me he's going to go to Miami where they hired Noah LaRoche as a consultant running a very similar offense? I don't think Miami makes a lot of sense. So I don't know, unless it's a team like the Nets, but they're tanking their asses off. They just drafted a ton of point guards. I just don't see more than 2, 3, or 4 teams that you could make a strong argument for Ja and have incentive to trade for him. And so that means like Memphis might just be stuck with him and you got to try to make it work. So I'm not going all the way of blow it up because I think that option might not even be there with Ja Morant. And that's the real panic that I have, that what if there's nobody that makes sense as an out here for us and we're just stuck in the middle. And that's that. Like, that's really the worst place to be ultimately.
Yeah, you can't be the guy who has the ball in his hands all the time and is spamming high pick and roll and just playing that heliocentric style unless you are transcendently great, right? Like, it's one thing if it's Luka Doncic and you're like, we're running this many pick and rolls a game and that sort of thing. And that's the thing is like, they try, like to your point, they did get rid of Taylor Jenkins, and they did kind of go back to let's just give Ja the ball a ton to end last season. And he did average 27 points per game over his final, I think, 22 games, if I remember correctly. And they were a 500 team because it's just that type of basketball where Ja just gets the ball and gets to put up numbers. They don't actually win when they play that way. As a matter of fact, when they were playing the Taylor Jenkins driving kick style early in the year and Ja wasn't leading the team in scoring, that was when they were racking up the wins. And so that was the frustrating thing with the Isalo quotes from the story from Shams about that suspension. It's like, okay, so you're clearly upset because Isalo is trying to get you guys to play with ball and player movement. Every smart coach in the entire NBA is trying to find ways to weaponize your talents in a way that cultivates the success of 5-man units. And everyone's chasing these things. More in transition, more ball and player movement, better spacing, all these like getting the ball at the floor quickly so you can get into multiple actions in the same possessions. That's literally why Miami's doing all the stuff they're doing. They're looking at what Indiana did and like in how you can win basketball games by playing super fast and by playing as a team and driving and kicking and all these kinds of things. And it's like, you're upset that this guy as a competitor, as your coach, is trying to cultivate this for you as well, but it doesn't fit your perfect view of Ja Morant dancing with the basketball every single possession down the floor and doing his own thing. And it's pouting. It lacks self-awareness. It's just been really sad because, again, like I am such a big believer in his foundational skill.
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately, it's unfortunate to see that foundation crumbling. And I hope by the end of the year, Ja Morant looks like a top 15, 20 player again, but I got my doubts. Let's move on to a team that I'm sure you're going to be pressing the panic button here. I'd be shocked otherwise. The New Orleans Pelicans, 0-6 so far on the year. They are 27th in the NBA in offensive rating, 106.8. They were 29th in the NBA in defensive rating, 124.2. And they're last in the NBA in net rating, minus 17.4. Jason, this is the team that on draft night, after trading the Pacers 2026 pick away for the 2025 Pacers pick during the finals before Tyrese Halliburton ruptured Achilles, they then traded that pick to move up 10 spots for Derek Queen. And he doesn't play until the fourth quarter in Sunday's loss they had. And ultimately, this team looks like they've just quit. Looks like they've quit on their coach, Willie Green. It looks like they've quit on each other. So this Pelicans front office, Jason, they have a decision to make with Willie Green. If you're Willie Green, you're panicking for sure, I'm guessing. The Pelicans overall as a franchise, are you being patient with them? Are you panicking with them? Where are you at, Jason? I feel like I would be shocked if you say anything about panic here. Tell me, are you panicking?
You were kind to leave out the DeJounte Murray trade too. Like it's just been a brutal sequence of events over the course of the last few years. I definitely panic. It'll be a shame if like Willie Green is effectively scapegoated because this roster is broken in so many different ways. Like they're shooting 32% on unguarded.
One quick thing here. You said scapegoating with him. Do you think that's fair to say he would be a scapegoat, or do you think he has some deficiencies as a head coach that would give good reason for the franchise to move on from him at this point? It is a new front office. Do they have good reason to move on from Willie Green, or do you think he would be a scapegoat and that's that?
It's more just one of those things where like their hands are kind of tied in a lot of ways with some of the personnel that they have in house. And so like you got to change one of the two things. And I wouldn't be, they're clearly, to the point you made earlier, they're clearly not bought into Willie Green anymore. They clearly have quit on him. And so if that's the case, you've got to have a change of voice. And at the very least, you've got to attempt to get somebody in there that can galvanize them and get them to play some better basketball. But at the same time, like it's kind of the same thing we were talking about with Ja. Like you've got this downhill guy that can't shoot, but that is a very good playmaker and short range shot maker. And you've surrounded him with a complete lack of shooting. The Jordan Poole experiment, it's early and this could easily turn around, but he's having a brutal start. He's below 50% on the rim. He's not at the rim. He's making nothing off the dribble. He's shooting just 26% on pull-up threes, on floaters and middies. He's 6 for 13. Like you're getting nothing out of Jordan Poole. Trey Murphy's off to a rough start to start the season. None of you made the point about Derek Queen. None of their young guys look exceptionally explosive or talented. Was Zion off the floor this year? I found this stat this morning. This is crazy. With Zion off the floor this year, they're getting outscored by 28 points per 100 possessions. That is just getting absolutely steamrolled when when Zion's off the floor. And so like, it's kind of a broken fundamental concept because you've got this big downhill rim pressuring playmaker and you haven't surrounded him with shooting. And down the roster, you don't have any young talent to be excited about. The team's not competing on defense.
Jeremiah Fears. Jeremiah Fears, that's like the one silver lining. Like
he's been okay. Yeah. He hasn't been earth shattering.
I mean, it's a low bar. It's the one thing to see. It's a very low bar. It's like, hey, at least we have Jeremiah Fears, who could be a spark plug scorer and hopefully much more. But yes, it's a very, very low bar to your point.
Yeah, but it's early, but it's depressing. And like I kind of look at it as like there's a kind of a fundamental broken team construct here, and like it could theoretically come together if all these guys start shooting better, but then you have the same issue on defense. It's dark times. It's dark times down in New Orleans. I feel really there. Here's a question for you: who's had a worse go of it over the last couple years, the Dallas Mavericks fans or the New Orleans Pelicans fans?
I mean, I think Dallas, because they actually had the guy and they lost the guy and Luka, but at the same time, at least you had a love. It's better to love and lost than to never love.
Yeah.
Right? the Pelicans have never had anything. It's just pure loneliness.
They were like fun and spunky and exciting a couple years ago, and it's just gone. I mean, it's just gone.
I know. It's just insane. I mean, the fact, like, if Joe Dumars could go back in time to the middle of the finals, he would never have had traded the Pacers pick next year for the one this year. And he never would have traded that pick they received and their own pick in 2026 to move up for Derek Queen. And that's also unfair to Derek Queen as well, because Derek Queen, he could be a good player. He could be. It could turn out that Derek Queen ends up a good player long term. But when the Pelicans don't have there's no light at the end of the tunnel this season. Like, this team could lose or win only 20 games or win only 10 games. Who knows what their record's going to end up being in the crowded Western Conference. But there's no light at the end of the tunnel where on lottery night in the middle of May, you're hoping those balls bounce your way, because the Hawks have that pick. The Hawks have the Pelicans 2026 first-round draft pick unprotected. And they gave that up to move up 10 spots for a guy who didn't even play until the fourth quarter on Sunday. It just feels like an organization that lacks alignment. It feels like if you want to be a conspiracy theorist, you could be like, oh, is this like in the movie Major League where like they tried to move the team from Cleveland to Miami with low attendance? Like you could be a conspiracy theorist if you want to. If Joe Dumars is a plant, you can be that if you want to, because that's how bad it looks. It's like something out of a movie. They traded their own first-round pick unprotected to move up for Derek Queen. And even the Pacers trade, like, I kind of forgot. I was looking at this recently, but when they did that trade, Jason, Halliburton had the calf injury at the time. He hadn't yet ruptured his Achilles, but he had an injury. And so there's just
Yeah.
no reason to do that trade when we know what calf injuries can lead to. Everybody was talking about the possibility of the injury before it happened because of the history of this, and yet they did that trade anyway. It's just, I just feel so bad for Pelicans fans, man. It's just awful. But circling back to Willie Green, with Trey Murphy specifically, he's off to a slow start, as you said. But I still think with Willie Green, one of the things that has always bugged me with him is the usage of Trey Murphy. Like, Trey Murphy should not be 28th in the NBA in three-point attempts per game. Trey Murphy is a way better, more dynamic shooter than that. He's been one of the best in the NBA since he entered the league. If Dylan Brooks can get 10 three-pointers per game, Trey Murphy can get 10 three-pointers per game. Like, let's get Trey Murphy more usage, more opportunity. And even with Zion, I think there's a lack of, and this is in part his own limitations. He does not do anything 5 feet or more away from the basket, in part because of his unwillingness. When I interviewed Zion years ago, I asked him, why do you not just take shots? Why don't you take pull-ups? And he said to me, he's like, it's a confidence thing. I lose my confidence when I miss a shot. So I don't know if he's still wired that way. That was, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. I forget exactly when him and I sat down at the gym at UCLA and had that interview. But ultimately, I think it's probably still the case. And so unless he's spacing the floor, that limits what he can do. With that said, I do think there's a lack of creative actions that Willie Green uses with Zion to get him going towards the basket. And ultimately, I think they are going to let go of Willie Green at some point this month or this week or at some point this season. And that's just pure speculation, nothing reported at all, just to be clear. But ultimately, I don't, to your point as well, I don't know if the roster has the pieces for the X's and O's to work no matter who the coach is. But I do think there's little things. They should not be this bad, Jason. They should not be.
That's what I was just going to say. They shouldn't be this bad on offense. Like when you have this many high level offensive players that are getting off to a rough start, it can't just be everyone's out of rhythm at the same time. There's got to be some organizational issue.
Exactly. Let's move on to the Knicks. They're 3-3 so far this season. Entered the season, of course, with title hopes. Still have title hopes. They took down the undefeated Chicago Bulls on Sunday, but they are 3-3 on the year. Cat's been up and down defensively so far this year. Didn't complain, but had confusion over his role ahead of opening night. And Josh Hart has a weird hand injury at this point, reported by James Edwards over at the Athletic. At the Athletic over the weekend. James reported how it's not just a finger injury for Josh Hart, but he has nerve damage throughout his entire shooting hand that have made it hard for him to do even daily tasks. And Josh Hart, he's shooting only 14.3% from three-point range so far this year, 2 of 14 from three. The Knicks still have the second highest finals odds, according to BetMGM, at plus 340, but they do have their concerns. They are 3-3, Jason. So I'm curious. New York's finals hopes, panic or patience?
I'm big time on patience with the Knicks. I'm a big believer that when you make some fundamental changes in play style, that there's going to be growing pains. I think it's been ironic because I feel like in their home games, they've played a little bit more like older versions of the Knicks where they can get a little stagnant, but it almost like feels more familiar for them. And so they can succeed like that. But I think that there's big long-term potential with what they're doing. Like they were 18th in passes made per game last season. They're 5th in passes made per game this season. Jalen Brunson is getting twice as many spot-up opportunities per game as he did last year. He's converting those spot-up opportunities at 1.56 points per possession. He's getting more easy shots. He's running a couple fewer ball screens every game, a fewer ISO every single game. He's getting a little bit more support down the roster just through the ball movement, the transition pushes. There is, I think, an idealized version of the Knicks which capitalizes on all of the aggregate ball handling that they have, and that's able to hit a higher ceiling on offense than they did last year in the postseason in particular, because I think they were a better regular season offense than people remember. It's just the Jalen Brunson do everything attack seemed to hit a certain ceiling when it gets repetitive in the postseason over the course of weeks at a time. But I am a big believer that this kind of thing does take time. They have looked, I think, better on defense than they did last year, just in terms of their overall level of engagement and the intensity of their rotations. Mikal Bridges is off to a better start defensively than he was last year. I think getting Mitchell Robinson back will be key, because I was all, before the season, I was like, oh, Mitch is going to be here. It's going to be a completely different team than they were to start last year. And then he's immediately out of the lineup again. But overall, I like a lot of what they're doing. I like the way the bench group is playing, where you've got, Tyler Kolek coming in and running just action and making easy reads at the beginning of possessions to get them into rotation. And Jordan Clarkson had a little bit of a rough start, but he's like gunning in transition, shooting crazy pull-up threes and bringing some scoring. Landry Shamet's shooting the ball really well. Like, they've got a lot of things that are going well. It's just very clear that Cat is the guy that is struggling most with the transition to the new style on offense. And so I think that sort of thing's just going to come along in time. Again, like, that's such a substantial increase in their ball and player movement year over year. Give them a chance to kind of find their rhythm, and they should be better. I should admit, I personally have never been very high on the Knicks, not in the past, even not now with the new system. So you're not going to get me to come up here and be like, oh, this is a team destined to hoist the trophy or anything like that. But I do think if you look at their season last year, outside of the 4 wins against Boston, they were generally underwhelming throughout the entire season. Do I think they can be better than that? Absolutely. I think they can look more like a good team that has some good wins against good teams throughout the season, that doesn't struggle as much in a first round matchup as they did last year, that has more highs. I think they're capable of being better than they were last year, even if I'm not as high on them as other people are.
I think that is spot on, Jason. I'm going to be patient with the Knicks. Not going to panic. It's just 3-3. It's just 6 games. This is a new system, new identity. You need to give that team time to figure things out.